I never thought I'd fear something as mundane as a McDonald's. The golden arches, the happy meals, the late-night fries. It was all supposed to be innocent, comforting even. But now I can't even look at those red and yellow signs without breaking into a cold sweat. And it all started on one of those endless late-night shifts. My name's Eric, and I used to work the graveyard shift at a 24-hour McDonald's just off Route 87 in upstate New York. It wasn't my first choice, but bills don't pay themselves. The night shift was usually quiet. A few truckers, the occasional teenager grabbing fries after a party. Nothing exciting ever happened. Until it did. It was around 2:30 a.m. on a Tuesday. The dining area was closed, so it was just the drive-thru running. I was manning the counter, scrolling on my phone, when I heard it. A deep, metallic scraping sound coming from the parking lot. At first, I thought it was a car dragging something, but when I looked out the window, the lot was empty. Just rows of parked employee cars and the dull glow of a flickering streetlight. Probably the wind, I muttered, though I didn't quite believe it. The air felt wrong, heavy, like the atmosphere before a storm. The headset crackled to life. A car at the drive-thru. I shook off the unease and went to take the order. "Welcome to McDonald's. What can I get for you?" Silence. I repeated myself, leaning into the mic. That's when I heard it breathing. Slow, deliberate, and close, like someone was exhaling right into the speaker. Hello?" I asked, my voice shaky now. "Do you have Happy Meals?" The voice was raspy, like whoever was speaking hadn't used their vocal cords in years. Yeah," I stammered. "What kind of toy would you like?" The line went dead. I waited, listening to the faint static on the headset. Then, out of nowhere, the scraping sound came again, this time louder, closer. It seemed to come from the side of the building. My heart thudded as I stepped toward the window to look outside. And that's when I saw it. At first, I thought it was a shadow, cast by the flickering streetlight. But shadows don't move like that. It was tall, unnaturally so, with limbs that seemed too long for its gaunt body. Its head was tilted, like it was studying the building, and it held something in its hand. Something long and sharp, scraping against the asphalt with that awful metallic noise. It wasn't human, or if it was, it wasn't anymore. I froze, my breath catching in my throat as the thing took a step toward the drive-thru lane. Its movements were jerky, almost glitchy, like a bad video game character. It was dragging whatever was in its hand. A rusted pole, maybe a piece of rebar, and it didn't seem to care about the noise it was making. It wanted to be heard. The headset crackled again. "I'm waiting," the voice hissed, so close it felt like it was inside my ear. Panic surged through me. I ripped the headset off and stumbled back from the counter. My coworker, Janice, poked her head out from the kitchen. She'd been in the back, restocking supplies. "Eric, you okay?" she asked, her voice sharp with concern. "Shoo," I whispered, motioning for her to be quiet. I pointed toward the drive-thru window, but when we both looked, the thing was gone. Janice frowned. "What am I supposed to be looking at?" "It was just there," I said, my voice shaking. "Something was out there, Janice. I'm not making it up." She sighed, clearly unimpressed. "You're probably just tired, or imagining things. It's dead out there." I didn't bother arguing. My instincts told me I wasn't crazy, and something was very, very wrong. I walked over to the drive-thru window and locked it, just in case. Then I grabbed my phone and checked the security cameras. Maybe I'd catch something, some proof to show Janice. But the cameras were glitching. The footage was grainy, filled with static, but I could make out shapes, vague, humanoid figures moving in and out of frame. Too many figures. And then the screen went black. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You're not alone. Don't look up." I felt the blood drain from my face. Slowly, against every ounce of logic screaming at me to stop, I tilted my head upward. The overhead lights flickered, and that's when I saw it. A face. Pale, hollow eyes pressed right up against the ceiling tiles, staring down at me. My scream caught in my throat. The thing on the ceiling was watching me, its face impossibly close, pressing against the thin tiles. Its eyes were too large, too empty, and its mouth, It smiled, revealing jagged, yellow teeth. The corners of its lips stretched unnaturally wide, almost as if mocking my terror. I stumbled backward, knocking over a tray of fries. Janice rushed to my side, grabbing my arm. "Eric, what is wrong with you?" she demanded. Look up," I whispered, pointing with a trembling finger. But when Janice looked, the face was gone. The tiles were intact, no sign of disturbance. She gave me a bewildered look. "Are you messing with me? Because if you are, it's not funny." "I'm not," I snapped, my voice cracking. "Something is happening, Janice. I saw it on the cameras, I saw it outside, and now..." I broke off, gasping. My phone buzzed again. Another text from the unknown number. "Check the fryer." The fryer. My stomach lurched. I turned slowly toward the kitchen. The fryers were off, untouched, but a thick, black liquid was bubbling up from one of them. It wasn't grease. Smelled wrong, like rotting meat and burnt plastic. The scent was so overwhelming I gagged. "Do you smell that?" I asked, looking at Janice. Her face was pale now, her bravado crumbling. "What the hell is that?" she whispered. The black liquid bubbled higher, spilling over the edge of the fryer and onto the floor. It moved unnaturally, pooling and spreading toward us like it had a mind of its own. Janice screamed, grabbing my arm. "Eric, what the hell is going on?" "I don't know," I yelled, pulling her back as the liquid oozed closer. It was moving faster now, reaching out in tendrils like it was alive. One of the tendrils curled upward, forming a shape. A hand, skeletal and dripping with black sludge, clawed at the air and then... it reached for me. We bolted. I grabbed Janice and yanked her toward the employee break room. We slammed the door shut behind us, but the moment we did, a loud bang echoed through the restaurant. Something heavy was pounding on the walls, shaking the door frame. The scraping noise started again, this time louder, more insistent. My phone buzzed a third time. The message was short, just 3 chilling words. "Don't try hiding." The lights in the break room flickered, then went out completely. Janice grabbed my hand, her grip so tight it hurt. "What do we do?" she whispered, her voice trembling. I didn't have an answer. All I could think about was that face on the ceiling, those hollow eyes, and the knowledge that whatever was happening, it wasn't going to stop. The pounding outside grew louder and then it stopped. Silence. Utter, suffocating silence. And then the door handle began to turn. The door handle twisted slowly, almost teasingly, as if whatever was on the other side wanted us to know it could get in anytime it wanted. Janice was frozen beside me, her breath coming in shallow, terrified gasps. I grabbed a broom from the corner of the break room, holding it like some kind of pathetic weapon. The handle stopped turning. For a moment, nothing happened. The silence was so complete I could hear my own heart hammering in my chest. I didn't know what was worse, the door bursting open or the agonizing wait for it to happen. "Eric," Janice whispered, clutching my sleeve. "Do you think it's gone?" "No," I whispered back, gripping the broom tighter. My eyes were fixed on the door, my mind racing through every terrible possibility. Then, without warning, the break room window shattered inward. Glass sprayed across the room, and Janice screamed. I spun toward the broken window, my blood running cold. A pale, clawed hand was reaching through the jagged opening, groping blindly. Its fingers were unnaturally long, and its nails scraped against the metal edge of the window frame, sending chills down my spine. "Run!" I shouted, grabbing Janice by the wrist. We bolted for the door. Whatever was outside let out a guttural, inhuman screech as we threw the door open and sprinted down the hall. The restaurant was unrecognizable now. The lights were flickering wildly, casting eerie shadows that seemed to move on their own. The black liquid from the fryer had spread across the kitchen, pulsating like a living organism. As we ran past, a tendril shot out, narrowly missing Janice's ankle. "This way!" I yelled, leading her toward the front entrance. But as we rounded the counter, I skidded to a halt. The thing from the parking lot was there. It stood in the center of the dining area, hunched and trembling, its head tilted at that grotesque angle. Its hollow eyes were fixed on me, and its smile stretched wider, splitting its pale skin as though it wasn't meant to grin that way. It whispered something, a single word I couldn't understand but felt deep in my bones, like a vibration in the air. My knees buckled, and I clutched the counter to keep from falling. Janice didn't stop. She charged at the door, slamming into it with all her weight. It wouldn't budge. "It's locked," she cried, pounding on the glass. "Why won't it open?" The thing moved then, its body jerking unnaturally as it took a step forward. Then another, and another. Each step was accompanied by the awful scraping noise from before, though I still couldn't see what it was dragging. "Janice, get down," I shouted, grabbing a tray from the counter and hurling it at the creature. It didn't even flinch as the tray bounced off its shoulder. Instead, it turned its head toward me, its hollow eyes locking onto mine. The lights flickered again, and for a brief moment, everything went dark. When they came back on, the creature was right in front of me. I stumbled back, barely avoiding its outstretched hand. Up close, the thing was worse than I'd imagined. Its skin was translucent, stretched tight over sharp bones. Dark veins pulsed just beneath the surface, and its breath reeked of decay. It leaned in, close enough that I could see my reflection in those empty, hollow eyes. "Stay with us," it rasped, its voice a low growl that made my stomach churn. "No," I shouted, swinging the broom in blind desperation. The wooden handle connected with its arm, snapping in two like a twig. The creature didn't even react. Behind me, Janice was still pounding on the locked doors, her panicked sobs filling the air. I had to think fast. My eyes darted around the room, landing on the emergency fire alarm by the entrance. "Janice," I yelled. "Pull the alarm." She hesitated for a split second, then lunged for it. The alarm erupted with a deafening wail, red strobe lights flashing through the restaurant. For a moment, the creature froze, its head twitching violently as if the sound was hurting it. Then it screamed. The sound was unlike anything I'd ever heard. High-pitched, guttural, and layered, like 1,000 voices crying out in agony. The creature staggered backward, clutching its head, and I saw my chance. "Go!" I shouted, grabbing Janice and dragging her toward the back exit. The black liquid was still spreading across the floor, but the alarm seemed to weaken it. Its tendrils recoiled, twitching and writhing as we leapt over the puddles. We burst through the back door into the cold night air, not stopping until we reached the parking lot. My car was parked nearby, and I fumbled with my keys, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped them. "Hurry," Janice urged, glancing over her shoulder. I followed her gaze and froze. The creature was at the door, its pale face glowing in the moonlight. It didn't chase us. It just stood there watching, its head tilted as if memorizing our faces. I finally got the car unlocked, and we dove inside. The engine roared to life, and I slammed on the gas, speeding out of the lot without looking back. We didn't stop until we were miles away, parked in the empty lot of an all-night diner. Janice was shaking, clutching her knees, while I sat in stunned silence. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Finally, she broke the silence. "What the hell was that?" "I don't know," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "but I'm never going back there." The next morning, I checked the news, half expecting to see something about the restaurant. But there was nothing. No reports of damage, no mention of what we saw. It was like the entire night had been wiped from existence. But I know what I saw, and every time I pass those golden arches, I feel its hollow eyes watching me, waiting for the right moment to strike again. In the weeks that followed, I quit my job at McDonald's. I didn't even bother giving notice. There was no way I was stepping foot back in that place. Janice didn't argue either. She left the same day I did, though we didn't talk about it much. What could we say? "Hey, remember that night we saw a living nightmare in the break room?" Yeah, not exactly water cooler chat. But even away from the restaurant, I couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't over. The creature, whatever it was, had left a mark on me, on both of us. I started noticing strange things, little details that didn't add up, like how my phone would buzz at random times, only to show an unknown number with no message, or how I'd catch glimpses of movement in my peripheral vision, only for nothing to be there when I turned around. The worst part? The dreams. Every night, I'd find myself back in the McDonald's, standing in the kitchen, surrounded by that black sludge. The fryer would bubble over, and the thing would crawl out of it, its hollow eyes locked onto mine. "Stay with us," it would whisper over and over, until I woke up drenched in sweat. I tried to brush it off, telling myself it was just trauma playing tricks on me. But then Janice called. "Eric," she said, her voice shaky. "It's happening again." "What's happening again?" I asked, already dreading the answer. "I went to another McDonald's," she said, "just for a coffee. But I saw it. The black sludge. It was in the fryer, just like before." My stomach dropped. "Are you sure?" "Yes," she snapped. "I'm not imagining it, Eric. It's spreading." That was all I needed to hear. We decided to meet up and figure out what to do. Janice drove down to my place the next day, looking pale and sleep-deprived. She had photos on her phone, blurry shots of the black liquid creeping across the floor of another McDonald's kitchen. "This isn't just us," she said. "Whatever it is, it's still out there." I didn't want to believe her, but the evidence was right in front of me. And the more we talked, the more we realized we weren't just dealing with a single haunting or anomaly. This thing, this presence, was tied to something much bigger. "Think about it," Janice said. "How many McDonald's are there in the country, in the world? What if it's not just one location? What if it's all of them?" The thought made my skin crawl. Could it really be that widespread? Could something so monstrous be hiding in plain sight, beneath the golden arches we all grew up with? We decided to dig deeper. Janice reached out to other former employees. Using online forums and social media, I started researching corporate scandals, urban legends, anything that might explain what we saw. What we found wasn't much, but it was enough to keep us up at night. Scattered reports of strange incidents at various McDonald's locations, employees quitting without explanation, unsolved disappearances linked to late-night shifts, and always the same eerie detail, glitchy security footage, often corrupted beyond recovery. The more we learned, the more hopeless it felt. How do you fight something that isn't even supposed to exist? But then we found him. A man named Charlie, who claimed to have worked at a McDonald's in the early 90s. He reached out to Janice after seeing one of her posts, saying he had a story to share. "I saw it too," his message read, "and I can tell you what it really is." Charlie agreed to meet us at a dingy diner on the outskirts of town. He was in his late 50s, with tired eyes and a nervous energy that made him glance over his shoulder every few minutes. As soon as we sat down, he launched into his story. "I worked the night shift at a McDonald's in Kansas, back in '92, he began, his voice low. "Same as you. Started small, equipment acting up, weird smells, lights flickering. Then one night I saw it. The black sludge. Thing. I leaned in, my heart pounding. "What is it?" Charlie hesitated, his hands trembling as he reached for his coffee. "It's not just one thing," he said finally. "It's part of something bigger, something ancient." He explained that McDonald's, like many global corporations, had its share of urban legends. But this was no myth. According to Charlie, the chain's expansion in the 70s and 80s wasn't just about serving fast food. It was about tapping into something. They built the restaurants in specific locations, he said, places where the lines between our world and something else are thin. Ley lines, fault zones, whatever you want to call them. They knew what they were doing. The arches, the branding, it's all part of a design. A signal. I stared at him, trying to process what he was saying. A signal for what? Charlie's voice dropped to a whisper. To feed it. My stomach churned. Feed what? The entity, he said. The thing you saw is not alive in the way we understand, but it's conscious. It exists in the gaps, the cracks of reality. And every time someone walks into one of those restaurants, every meal they buy, every calorie consumed, it's feeding. Janice shook her head, her voice trembling. That's insane. Is it? Charlie shot back. You saw it yourself. You felt it. Do you really think it's just some coincidence? He leaned closer, his eyes boring into mine. The thing is growing, spreading, and once it gets strong enough... He trailed off, but he didn't need to finish. I knew what he was implying. So what do we do? I asked, my voice barely audible. Charlie sighed. You don't. There's no stopping it. The best you can do is stay away. Keep your head down. Forget you ever saw it. Janice slammed her fist on the table. That's it? Just run and hide while this thing takes over. Charlie's expression softened. I'm sorry, kid. I've been running for 30 years. You can't fight something you can't even understand. We left the diner in silence, the weight of Charlie's words pressing down on us. Part of me wanted to believe he was just a paranoid old man, but deep down, I knew he was right. I stopped going out late at night, stopped eating fast food altogether. Janice and I drifted apart, each of us trying to bury the memories in our own way. But no matter how much time passed, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Then last week I got another text. We're still here. Attached was a photo, a McDonald's I didn't recognize. Inside, under the flickering fluorescent lights, was the creature. His hollow eyes stared straight at the camera, straight at me. Did you like these stories? Write in the comments. And please write what you didn't like. It will be useful for me to know your opinion. And I will improve my work. Thank you. Subscribe to my channel and click the bell so as not to miss new stories. I try for you.